Hello, welcome back. GovDoc Breakdown, no opinions, just facts and summaries of government documents, and we let you do the rest. All right, June 6th, Presidential Memorandum eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. This is a doozy, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is crazy. All right, we have a juicy one here for you today. A memo from the President to the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, ordering them to crack down on deceptive Medicaid payment practices. The memo points out that the states have found a way to manipulate the Medicaid payment system through something called matching payments from the federal government. So let me try to explain this correctly. Took me a second to really realize what was going on, but basically the state is making a profit at the expense of the healthcare provider and the federal government. All right, so here we go. You got the state and you got a healthcare provider. And then you got the federal government over here. The state is the one that pays Medicaid expenses to the healthcare providers. So say the healthcare provider says, hey, we need $1 million to pay for Medicaid services this year. So the state says, all right, great. We send you a check for $1 million for Medicaid payments. And then the government, depending on the state, matches a percentage of that payment. And it's usually like 50 to 70%. So let's go crazy here, say it's 70%. The federal government matches Medicaid payments from the state at a 70% rate. So the state sends the check for $1 million, and then the federal government sends a check for $700,000 to the state as a matching payment, right? So $700,000 comes from the federal government, $300,000 comes from the state, and the Medicare expenses for the healthcare provider are covered. That is the way this should be happening. However, now we get to the crazy part. So the state and the healthcare provider. Healthcare provider says, $1 million, please. And the state says, all right, well, we are going to charge you a tax, a healthcare provider tax. Let's say it's $500,000. And the hospital says, all right, we send you a $500,000 tax. And then the state takes that $500,000 and puts it as a part of the Medicaid payment. So the $500,000 tax coming from the healthcare provider becomes $500,000 of the Medicaid payment, and then $500,000 from state funds is sent as a $1 million Medicaid payment to the healthcare provider. But then the U.S. government says, all right, you made a $1 million Medicaid payment and sends $700,000 to the state. So the healthcare provider is screwed out of $500,000. The state makes a $200,000 profit.
Full video located on our channel.